government and industry all said that the energy needed to make $1 of real GDP could never go down. A year later, I heretically suggested it could drop 67% in 50 years. So far, it's dropped 54% in 39 years. And yet, just the innovations already achieved in far more powerful technologies, design methods, enlightened regulation, maturing financing and marketing and delivery channels can now save another threefold, twice what I originally thought, at 1/3 the real cost. And 5 years later, even that's now looking conservative. Because we're starting to take General Eisenhower's advice to make tough problems soluble, not by chopping them into finer bits, but by expanding their boundaries until they encompass what the solution requires. More options, more synergies, more degrees of freedom. And all four energy-using sectors, transport, buildings, industry, and electricity, save more electricity sooner together than separately. They have important interactions that most models don't yet capture. For example, smart electric vehicles, which we now know how to deploy rapidly and affordably, provide valuable distributed storage and flexibility to the electric grid so it can more easily integrate variable renewables. So it's actually easier to solve the automobile and electricity problems together than separately. Moreover, four kinds of innovation, not just technology but also design, not only public policy but also new business strategy, can combine to create some deeply disruptive game changers that can leapfrog national development. Now, these synergies first emerged 5 years ago in this detailed business book, Reinventing Fire. It showed how the United States could, by 2050, run a 2.6-fold bigger economy with no oil, no coal, no nuclear energy, a third less natural gas, using tripled efficiency, quintupled renewables, emitting 82 to 86% less carbon, costing $5 trillion less than business as usual in net present value, and needing no new inventions and no acts of Congress, because the smart subnational policies could enable and speed the transition led by business for profit. Now, I won't have room in my talk tomorrow for the important story about getting India off oil, especially for mobility. But I mentioned that electrified autos and smaller vehicles could be key elements of an integrated and flexible electric grid. And just to give you an idea how fast things are going, there's a strategic shift towards ultralight electric autos underway in at least 4 to 7 automakers worldwide, lines we developed in '91. Weight causes 2/3 of the energy used by a car, and removing weight leverages 7-fold bigger fuel savings at the tank. So 16 years ago, my team designed a half-normal weight carbon fiber hybrid electric SUV, boosting efficiency by 4 to 6-fold with a 2-year payback. So with petrol or hydrogen, it's 28 to 48 kilometers per liter. 9 years ago, Toyota showed such a concept car with the interior volume of a Prius, half the fuel use, 1/3 the weight, 420 kilos. Very crashworthy. And now 50 to 110 kilometer per liter carbon fiber electric cars are on the market from 2 makers in Germany. And in fact, BMW confirmed that the carbon fiber is paid for by needing fewer batteries. We developed an even faster and cheaper manufacturing technology that made this carbon cap in 1 minute a decade ago. And now it can make 2 by 2 meter complex parts in 1 or 2 minutes. Tougher than titanium. And that technology is in the global supply chain. If you made all U.S. autos this way, you could save 1.5 Saudis or half an OPEC for $18 a barrel. That's to pay for the electrification. The ultralighting turns out to be approximately free because it's paid for by simpler automaking with 80% less capital requirement and by a 2/3 smaller powertrain. And such cars could, of course, be very well made in India in any size and segment you want. And if you want to spread these electric vehicles faster and drop the prices faster, you can use a policy called a fee-bait. rebate for buying an efficient new auto paid for by fees on inefficient ones. The biggest of 6 such programs in France in the first 2 years tripled the efficiency of improving auto efficiency. And the strongest one in Norway made 22% of last year's auto sales plug-in, 34 times the U.S. Share. And of course, as mobility merges with IT, the shift to what we call SEALs, shareable, electrified, autonomous, lightweight service vehicles, 2 changes in technology, 3 in business model, will transform mobility beyond recognition. There's similar potential in heavy vehicles, tripled efficiency or better heavy lorries. Walmart's already doubled its fleet of economy in the past 10 years. And also tripled to quintupled efficiency airplanes. All that can save nearly $1 trillion just in the U.S. And military innovation in efficiency is speeding all of this in light and heavy vehicles in much the way that military R&D gave us the internet, GPS, the jet engine, and microchip industries. Only this time speeding the journey beyond oil so our warfighters can have neg missions in the Persian Gulf and the South China Sea. Mission unnecessary. They really like that idea. Now, as for electricity, 3/4 of it in the U.S. powers buildings, 1/4 industry. And those buildings can triple or quadruple their energy productivity, saving $1.4 trillion net present value with a 33% internal rate of return. So the savings are worth 4 times their cost. Industry can accelerate as well and double its energy productivity with a 21% IRR. So that's how all the moving parts fit together in reinventing fire, that with 158% GDP growth to 2050, the energy savings officially projected in white or overlooked in magenta, plus more productive use of vehicles in dark blue, can triple end-use efficiency. Renewables in aqua quintuple and become 3/4 of total supply. The gas in green shrinks by 1/3. That's conservatively low. And then nuclear energy in gold, coal in orange, and coal in gray all phase out for lack of a business case, which is already obvious in the market outcomes for both coal and nuclear and rapidly emerging for oil. And the U.S. is approximately on this trajectory so far because the private sector smells the $5 trillion on the table. Now, this ambitious grand synthesis that 61 of us did for the U.S. now has a Chinese counterpart, which will be published in the next few weeks. Similar effort by 54 Chinese and American experts over the past 2.5 years. And it's a roadmap to inform the 13th five-year plan that was just approved. And it was done chiefly by the National Development and Reform Commission's top energy shop, the Energy Research Institute. Offers an instructive model for developing countries. And obviously many of us are eager to find out what its analog would look like in India. China is the world's biggest emitter of carbon and user of energy and coal, and its paramount leaders a year and a half ago called for a revolution, not a word the party uses lightly, in the production and consumption of energy. But meanwhile, we'd assembled these 4 organizations to write that roadmap for maximum practical and profitable deployment of efficiency of renewables. And here's what we found. That China could run a 6.9-fold bigger economy in 2050 than in 2010, using about the same primary energy as today. So this 7-fold gain in energy productivity would come both from technical efficiency and structural shifts, plus the transition from thermal to renewable power. That's the aqua bits. And meanwhile, supply would become well over half non-fossil, increasing carbon productivity 12-fold by 2050. So the coal burn falls about 60% or around 80% in the power sector. And the net present value at cost of this entire transition is about $3.7 trillion less in net present value than business as usual. So just as Mr. Jain said in the Niti Aayog scenario tools are starting to show, The efficient and clean scenario can cost less, not more. By the way, the carbon emissions would fall by about 2/5 below current levels, and conventional air pollution would fall 85 or 90% before improving fuels or abatement technologies. Now, India, of course, differs greatly from China in many ways, but a bit like Hanuman in the Ramayana, we sometimes need to be reminded of our special powers before we can do amazing things. So a visitor to India does observe some special powers here. At least comparable depth of smart, resourceful, very skilled people, profoundly entrepreneurial society, ambitious and action-oriented national leadership, the decentralized union promoting local initiatives and diverse experiments, the ability to leapfrog to the latest and best global practices, and you've built only maybe a third of your infrastructure versus about 2/3 for China. So there's a lot yet unbuilt that you have a wonderful opportunity to build right, easier than fixing it later. Also, you have a potentially energy surplus country disguised as an energy deficit country. That is, immense solar resources, several terawatts of wind, plus huge efficiency potential. So what can Indian ingenuity do to correct pervasive energy inefficiency? I want to offer you 6 examples, consciously omitting some very important ones like tripled efficiency cooking pots or improving the uniform quality of steel and cement so we need less of them to do the same work. Let me just focus on 6 that come immediately to mind. Where is Rohan Parikh? Okay, so back here we have a national treasure whose team, when he was at Infosys, built every quarter about a 22,000 square meter office using 4/5 less energy than the Indian norm, but with 10 or 20% lower capital cost, yet superior comfort and satisfaction. So this was an initial prototype competing his design on one side against conventional design on the other. That used 77% less energy than the median US office. It worked better. It's improved continuously ever since. And his later standard designs reduced the cooling capacity by 60%. So for a million square feet, that's 2,000 fewer tons, by successively improving building envelope, lighting design, plug loads, aircon system, and right-size, not over-designed specifications. Some innovations are as simple as the 100% midday or 90% morning and evening beautiful daylight on the right without glare, delivered without glare, because if any worker complained that she was experiencing glare and wanted blinds, the architect wouldn't get paid. Simple and effective. So here are the parameters summarizing how Rohan's team did this, how he got the 4- to 5-fold efficiency gain against normal Indian practice, better comfort, say 10 or 15% cheaper to build. In contrast, the Niti Aayog model assumes that buildings only about half as efficient as these would cost 10 or 15% more to build. Now, notice the red column on the right. Those are the percentage reductions measured for various uses. Just the reduced peak electrical load in a big new office, by the way, saved not just 95 rupees per square foot a year in annual electricity, but also about 250 rupees per square foot of capital up front in the mechanical and electrical system. Now, in the past 7 years, Infosys saved OpEx has added $100 million, 660 crore to the bottom line, and the total electricity consumption per employee fell by 46%. They're not done yet. Their retrofit target is now EPI 80 or 90, compared with 250, say, for a normal office. And the retrofits they already